Hey, Steve Saretsky here. As always, this is the Friday market update video, basically recapping everything that you need to pay attention to in Canadian real estate and, primarily into Vancouver real estate, which is obviously the market that I focus on. I want to touch on a few things. Probably gonna keep this video a little bit shorter here. Not too crazy of a news week. First things, a couple things that sort of startled me. Well, actually, I'm not really overly surprised, but the pre-sale condo market, which I've talked about extensively, the Urban Analytics, which works with a lot of developers, they actually gave a speech recently with the Urban Development Institute, and they released some of their slideshows, which I was able to go and pull and take a look at. And the guy from Urban Analytics has been in the business for 20 some odd years, and he was basically works closely with the developers to basically advise on the market conditions, etc. Helps them plan. So some really good insights on the pre-sale market there. The largest increase in pre-sale prices came from metro towns. So since 2015 to 2017, pre-sale prices have jumped 57%. So in Metro Town, that was the largest increase at 57%. From 2015, the average price per square foot that these pre-sales were selling for to now what they're asking in 2017 jumped 57% in 2 years. And that sort of mimics all the other areas. Vancouver, I think, was around 50%. New Westminster, Surrey, these are all very close, but Metro Town was the highest at 57%. He gives even one example. It was a project called the Met 2, and that basically pre-sold early 2014 at about $600 a foot. And today the building is now completed. They're now reselling units on the resale market at just under $1,100 a foot. So from $600 in early 2014 pre-sale to now it's completed, people are moving in, reselling them at just under $1,100 a foot on average. And so, if you do the math on that, we gave the example, it was an 82, on average, it was an 82% increase since the day they pre-sold it back in early 2014. So just to put that into context, an 82% price movement in basically 3 years, this is why I am a little bit pessimistic on the market in terms of the growth that it's had. And now, when people say they want to jump into the pre-sale market, you're buying a futures contract essentially, and you're locking in a premium price that in hopes that in 2 years when the building completes that you're going to be up or you're going to be ahead, and the market's going to increase that 20% you need it to just to break even, when you've already had, again, 57% in the last 2 years. Looks like 3 years it's been about 82%. Just to expect that sort of growth to continue, I remain very pessimistic about that. And then it sort of leads me into another context of the Fraser Valley. Just pulling some of the numbers again. There's gonna be a link to this below, but I've pulled some of the numbers, put lots of graphs and charts out for it. I mean, the graphs really speak for themselves. I think I can sit here and talk to you about it, but at the end of the day, once you actually look at these, you're gonna go, wow, like something's clearly not adding up here. And so what I basically did is I looked at the number of condos that were selling above the asking price. And so that's generally an indication, if a condo sells above the asking price, it's generally an indication that it's got multiple offers. It's generally, indicative that there's a lot of demand there. So it's something that I like to look at. I don't think it's like a perfect picture of the market, right? Obviously there's a lot of realtors right now that are underpricing listings, hoping to drive up that competitiveness and get the multiple offers. So there's no question there's a lot of that happening, but you can't get away with that unless there's that, crazy amount of demand there, right? Like, you can underprice a detached home today, but the chances of you getting 2-3 offers, it's pretty risky. So like in the detached market, you're better off just to price it at market value, what do you think it's going to sell for, because there's just not that much demand there, right? And so that's reflective in the condo market. Basically since 2000 to 2016, from 2000 to 2016, so that's 16 years. In 2017, there's basically been more condos sold above the asking price than the last 16 years combined. So just to put that into context, you know, places like Abbotsford, Langley, North Surrey, South Surrey, I basically pulled all the data for these areas, and essentially it was almost on par with the last 16 years. Now granted, 2017 is not even over, so you know we still have a couple more months, but the fact of the matter is that we've had 1 year, 2017, which has basically dwarfed the past 16 years, including the frothy markets that we had back in 05, 06, of course leading into our drop in 08. So that's where those markets are. I highly encourage you to check those out. I mean, I just think it's totally bananas what's happening in those Fraser Valley condos. Again, it's sort of that drive to qualify where people, you get priced out of Vancouver, you get priced out of Richmond, where do you go? And you just keep getting further and further out as prices continue to rise. It's that drive to qualify. And these are areas that have the ability to further densify. So, you know, I've talked a lot with UBC economist Tom Davidoff about this, and this is one of his primary concerns is, you know, the people can try to justify Vancouver. We are, you know, argue like areas like downtown Vancouver, you're basically out of land there. There's only so many more high rises they can put in. But as you sort of get further out into the valley, I think there's a lot more room for densification. There's a lot of single family homes. So for people to be really driving these condo prices up, you know, Fraser Valley condos are now up 35% on a year-over-year basis. It's concerning. And so that's was his philosophy, and I think I agree with him there. And then just quickly touch on the census, 2016 census numbers that came out, home ownership rates dropping across Canada. In BC, from 2011, we had a home ownership rate of 70%, which is like astronomically high, now dropping down to 68%. And then, of course, the number one target market where that was most affected was the millennial age group. I suspect those, you know, that millennial cohort to continue on home ownership rates continue to drop. I just think they have, you know, just too much debt. You know, their incomes are flat. You're going to school, racking up these massive debts. House prices are through the roof. So the biggest impact came from millennial home ownership rate, which I think, you know, had dropped substantially. That Better Dwelling did a good report on that, so I'll probably link that in the description below as well. But I do think that's a trend moving forward, right? I do think that more and more people are moving to rental as an option. I think that, you know, if you look at the price to rent ratio, that's one reason for it. But I just think ultimately, you know, like prices have become so high, it's hard for millennials to get on that ladder unless they've had help from parents. You know, particularly in like Vancouver, Toronto, I think it's just become a pipe dream for many. I think you have a lot of people living at home, longer ages, etc. And so, yeah, I mean, that's basically where we're at. I mean, I was going to talk a little bit about the credit markets, etc. But I'll give you a little preview. Come back in the next couple days. I'll do the October recap on all the stats, figures, numbers for Vancouver real estate. Preliminarily, as of right now, I'm just looking at the Vancouver detached numbers. It looks like this October will have the fewest detached sales over the past decade. So that includes last year where we had a very bad 2016 because, you know, primarily because of the foreign buyers tax, but also 2008. It looks like we'll have fewer sales here in October 2017. This is for Vancouver detached, right? So I'm not talking about Surrey or Greater Vancouver as a whole. I talk about Vancouver specifically because I do think it's a lead indicator for other areas. And I think that, you know, with the OSFI stress test coming out, this is one thing that I'll be looking for, is the market where I think was going to have the most impact. You know, these very expensive homes, even though you have people putting down 20, 25, 30%, they're still relying on that mortgage to come in. So we're reducing that mortgage by 20%, 25%. I think it's going to push that. It's just going to be another kick to the detached market, I think. So I think what it does is it potentially pushes people down that ladder, as I've been talking about. Does that push people more into condos, keeping condo prices elevated? I don't know. We'll have to wait, see how the market digests that. But yeah, that's all I got for this week. Hit your comments below. We'll engage back and forth. And yeah, again, if you haven't already subscribed, really appreciate that. And we'll see you we'll see you in a couple days. I'll do the October update, and then obviously we'll be back to usual Friday update videos. All right, take care.